Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today, and we're going to be doing a sneak peek look at the up and coming transit of Venus entering into the sign of Scorpio. Now, if you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, subscribe to the channel, click the bell button below so you're alerted as to when I have new videos. I'd love to have you guys stay here. Also, give me a thumbs up if you like this video and consider sharing on your socials. While you're there, make sure you follow me on X at BTVAstro for more astro ramblings. And as always, I'm here on YouTube every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday, trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Leave me a comment below. Let me know how you're feeling about this transit, how it manifests for you. Stay tuned to the end of the video. I'll take you through the 12 rising signs, and we'll talk about where Venus's transit is impacting you and what to watch for. All right, well, I'm excited to get into this one. Venus is about to wrap up her tour of Libra, where she has been obviously kind of up against some bumpers, some squares to Jupiter in Cancer, also in opposition to Chiron in Aries, so it hasn't been the easiest trek. And now she is dipping her toes into the dark, murky waters of Scorpio. So this is going to be impacting all of the signs. We're going to talk about all of the aspects, but in particular, if you happen to be a Taurus or a Libra rising, this will impact you a little bit more strongly because your planetary ruler is on the move. But I think Scorpio and Scorpio risings are really going to enjoy this because Venus in your sign is going to bring you passion and beauty and power. So stay tuned for that. And before we get to the 12 signs, we're going to uncover a little bit more of what this transit represents. Now, obviously, Venus gliding into Scorpio is shifting away from the airy charm that we see, and it's kind of trading up for a little bit more watery intensity. And that's because she is going into a fixed water sign. Scorpio, 8th sign of the zodiac, ruled by Mars and Pluto, is known for its intensity. Planets going through this sign represent a change and kind of peeling away all of the superficial layers to go deeper. So it's inviting us really to explore the undercurrents of love, money, and beauty. And this is a period that's really going to be amplifying, I think, our desire, secrets, as well as transformation. After all, Scorpio is all about urging authenticity over anything that's superficial. Now, for the dates of Venus in Scorpio, we're going to be seeing this from November the 6th, 2025. Depending on your time zone, it's going to be in the PM hours, and it's going to be staying in this sign until November 30th, 2025, when it transitions into Sagittarius. So what you guys need to know is that basically the house of where Scorpio is where Venus is going to be kind of moving. Pros and cons, we'll get into that, but Venus is considered to be a positive planet. She just kind of gets a little banged up in this particular sign. So if you happen to be a Taurus rising ruled by Venus, this is impacting you when it comes to partnerships. It's really about rethinking your security and sensuality. Libra risings are going to experience major value shifts in self-worth as well as possessions. And Scorpio risings are going to get a personal glow up, really bringing forth a lot of like magnetism and I think a little bit more raw, kind of like alluring vibes. Fixed signs overall, my Leos and Aquariuses, and obviously, Taurus and Scorpio. You guys are going to see a little bit of tension maybe with some of the squares and the oppositions, while the water signs like Cancer and Pisces, I think, are really going to enjoy the emotional depths of this transit. Now, keep in mind, it is going through the same sign where we're going to see Mercury retrograde in November. So you guys are actually watching this video. If you're watching at the beginning of November, the Mercury retrograde has not begun yet. So we're going to see some of the themes of love coming back, renegotiating, reassessing finances, budgets. Those are kind of the themes with both of those planets in the same sign. Now, obviously, when Venus dips into Scorpio's realm, relationships, which Venus rules, turn more passionate, but also more probing. Finances can be secretive yet strategic, and we might be opting for aesthetics that favor things that are more darker, more moody, a little bit more mysterious. And obviously, it's not like the pretty pastels that we see when Venus is in Libra. Now everything gets a little bit more moody. So it's a time where I think surface niceties are going to be giving way to like soul-stirring bonds. And so it can be very intense and very passionate for some people. But after all, Venus does, represent everything that is connected to love, beauty, harmony. She's about values. She has connections to pleasure as well as material resources. So Venus really, after all, it kind of like influences how we attract abundance and form connections. It's also about appreciating the finer things in life. And her traditional association with Taurus as well as Libra is about earthly comforts and relational balance. Scorpio is a sign that's about kind of merging and coming together as one. Being the sign that's connected to the 8th house or the shadow, it has this kind of connection to depth, obviously transformation, intimacy, but also power, things that are taboos, secrets, and it's about regeneration. Because this is a sign that is co-ruled by Mars, which is about drive and conflict, as well as Pluto, which requires evolution, and it's always about dealing with the underworld, this is a sign that really thrives on intensity, and it's known for investigations, hidden truth, and obviously rising renewed from some kind of crisis. Now, every time I see Venus in Scorpio or any kind of like even Venus retrograde, I think about the myth of, Venus and like that connection to the myth of Persephone, and her being abducted by Hades, obviously Lord of the underworld. And this is where love descends into the underworld for transformation and rebirth. So it's kind of blending beauty with shadow. It also resonates with Ayana's descent. We see that connection to the Venus retrograde. Even though Venus is not retrograde in the sign, she will be next fall. I think about, having to kind of face some of like the darker kind of forces and change and transform something. So maybe it's about confronting jealousy, loss, or renewal in relationships in general. Now, all of these kind of myths and connections are obviously kind of highlighting the more kind of obsessive, possessive nature that comes with love, and obviously the alchemy of passion and how we can kind of transform that into wisdom. Now, unfortunately, Venus in the sign, she is in her detriment. So it means that she's not in a sign that she bodes well in. Obviously, she is traditionally associated with Taurus and Libra. Because she's in the opposite sign of Taurus, she's in a detriment. So this means that, Venus moving through the sign, it's going to bring up some challenges to Venus's natural kind of harmony. So it's going to make the transit and anything involving love or money a little bit more intense, potentially a little bit more possessive, rather than things that are lighthearted. And we know that Libra wants to keep the peace. Scorpio says, screw that. We want to go a little bit deeper. We are willing to trade peace for truth. So we might find that, values become hidden or they become obsessive. It can lead to power struggles in relationships, but it can also foster profound loyalty and emotional depth once trust is earned. So this turns vulnerability into some kind of strength. I'll give Venus, natal Venus and Scorpio people credit where credit is due. Incredibly passionate, very devoted, very committed. And oftentimes, if you have Venus that's in the sign, it takes a lot of time to kind of mourn and like let go of something, particularly old relationships or material assets. And once you do, something new is reborn. So we can all get a little bit of a taste of that as we're going through this particular transit. Now, when we see Venus entering into Scorpio, a couple days later, we're actually going to see Uranus retrograde back into Taurus. And even though this is a completely different planet, we will see Venus make aspects to Uranus throughout her trek. We will also see that Venus will be the dispositor of Uranus and Taurus because Uranus is in a Venus sign. So with Uranus retrograding back around November 7th through the 9th, a couple of days into the Venus in Scorpio transit, we will see that she is now going to be connected to Uranus and Taurus themes. So this will majorly amplify any shifts in values, finances, as well as stability. And Venus in Scorpio is adding this more kind of secretive innovation. Maybe it's about urging breakthroughs in shared resources or tech-driven type of relationships. But likely it's spelling out lots of unexpected changes financially this fall. Now, what you want to watch for when Venus is transiting in the sign of Scorpio, obviously beware of jealousy. Okay, that's definitely a theme, especially right off the bat. Within 2 days, Venus will be coming into a superior square with Pluto, and we'll talk about what that means. But I'm anticipating, and I see this every year, themes revolving around jealousy, snooping, secrets in relationships, manipulation. We can also see control issues coming up in love. And also financial secrets or risky investments can be a big theme. Now, emotional intensity can lead to burnout when we see Venus in this particular sign, and power dynamics are likely to surface. I think obsessions can lead to clouded judgment, and we want to avoid extremes in spending or attachments. It's very important to kind of practice that hands-off approach, the detachment of not wanting to hold on to something that is actually not good for us. Remember, Scorpio can represent things that are toxic. So we're detoxing in negative spending habits, negative self-esteem perspectives, maybe rearranging our budgets and dealing with debt. Debt and loans is very much connected to Scorpio. I think to best work with this transit, we want to embrace vulnerability. I think we want to do that anytime something goes through Scorpio. Scorpio has a tendency with its energy to kind of get its back up, and if it feels that it's threatened or if it's being exposed, it kind of throws its stinger out. So if we can embrace vulnerability throughout this transit, really go deeper and learn to love some of the changes happening in that particular house in our chart, we'll see that it could actually materialize with deeper bonds. We might also benefit from journaling our desires to release things that are toxic, toxic behaviors, toxic attachments, and invest in transformative self-care. And that for some people could look like, healing modalities, therapy, regeneration rituals. And we want to seek authentic connections over superficial ones. If we can channel the passion into something creative, we can see that that could lead to some kind of a rebirth. It can also be a financial rebirth period for a lot of people as well. We just have to learn to trust the process when it comes to shedding some of our old values. Now for world predictions with Venus in Scorpio, I think globally we're going to see some intensified diplomatic tensions, and a lot of it's going to be over alliances. Likely we will see some type of scandal that's going to come up involving finances. I think a lot of that's due to the Mercury retrograde in the sign, but it can also touch on the entertainment industry or maybe politics revealing hidden motives. We might also see relationships between nations or corporations that may deepen strategically, while cultural trends might favor mysterious art or psychological themes. Now, I do think we can see prosperity boosts for certain sectors like tech or maybe even wellness, but watch for economic volatility, especially in the midst of Uranus going back into Taurus and some of the oppositions that we're going to be seeing. But overall, I think it's a push for authentic global connections amid some of the power plays that are taking place. Personally, it may be very different for you, and this is where it pays to know your personal sign and your chart. But I think that this, for individuals, is going to intensify relationships. For some of us, it's going to feel good. It's going to be hypnotic, and we're going to have like this magnetic attraction to someone or something. For others, we might feel like we're reevaluating what truth holds value. So the themes are going to include breakthroughs in relationships, particularly aimed at trust factors, maybe facing jealousy for growth, and discovering beauty in vulnerability. This will lead to empowered, I think, pleasures and also a deeper sense of self-worth. Now, I'd like to take you guys through Venus's trek through this sign. As always, you guys can click the description, head into the text, and you can see all of the dates that I'm going to be covering. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the highlights of the aspects we're going to see while Venus is in this sign. We've got sweet and we've got salty, but I think for the most part, I'm really liking it, especially because we're going to see a continuation of these grand water trines that have been taking place October into November. Obviously, we're going to have a continuation of the Sun in Scorpio. We're going to have trines to Jupiter in Cancer. We're going to have trines to the North Node Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. For some of us, this feels very heavy and very emotional, but for others, it represents a major lasting change that can really allow us to kind of unlock and tap into our soul's purpose. Obviously, that North Node in Saturn and Pisces, a lot of the themes are about embracing the unknown, letting things go, and what new good kind of love and relationship themes kind of follow that. All right, so we're going to start first, and I know you guys are watching this a couple days early, but we're going to start first on November the 6th. This is when Venus enters into the sign of Scorpio. So you want to pay attention if you are a Taurus, Libra, or Scorpio rising. You'll start feeling the effects of this pretty much right off the bat. And ingress is when a planet enters into a new sign. So we look at the aspects that are kind of going on that day. Obviously, something to think about is that from the time Venus enters into Scorpio, she's immediately starting to apply to a square with Pluto. That will not happen until the 7th, but it is possible the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th of November can be quite intense right off the bat. Pluto, after all, is also the dispositor of Venus, as is Mars. And so we see Mars conjunct Mercury, lots of communication about our beliefs when it comes to relationships. And Venus coming into a superior square with Pluto definitely talks about kind of expressing all of the secrets and anything that's hidden or anything that needs to kind of come out so we could have better security. Now, watch for this shift. We can feel it socially. We can also see it in our relationships. This is going to be really emphasizing the beginning of this kind of journey into Scorpio, and it's more about emotional depth, over surface harmony. So with Venus in Scorpio, it's intensifying our desires. It's about fostering loyalty and obviously revealing hidden values. So I'm expecting with this ingress, turn towards passionate connections. Maybe we're getting more strategic with our finances. Maybe we're having more of a call towards something that's a little bit dark and delicate when it comes to our aesthetic. And relationships can become more intimate, but also more obsessive. So it's really urging us to confront any jealousy or power dynamics that come up so we can be more authentic in how we show up in a relationship. And it sets the tone for the month's transformation, obviously in the midst of Scorpio season. And a lot of us are definitely going to feel this right off the bat. Now, we will see on the 6th also, excuse me, we also see Venus that's in an inconjunct or a quincunx to Uranus. Uranus is in the very early degrees of Gemini, getting ready to retrograde back into Taurus. So there's something that's rubbing us the wrong way, right? A building square to Pluto, a quincunx to Uranus. The inconjunct is kind of like, it's like sandpaper. Something is just kind of creating some friction and we don't really see where it's coming from. And it really creates this kind of building tension that's requiring us to make adjustments between Venus's more relational harmony and Uranus's more kind of disruptive, innovative vibe. So it's blending Scorpio's depth with Gemini's kind of mental abilities. Now, I think on the 6th, we might see that there are some sudden insights or changes in communication, which could clash with our values or our desires, and it could lead to some awkward adjustments in relationships or finances. It might manifest as unexpected news that's affecting partnerships or a need to adapt to something suddenly. I would say try to embrace flexibility to avoid frustration on the 6th. Now we move to the 7th, and this is when Venus comes into her square with Pluto. Interesting aspects. Obviously it's at a 1, Pluto's at a 1. So even though it is in Scorpio, it has an Aries vibe to it. It's like sudden, impulsive, obsessive things that we do personally, where there could be some tension, financially or socially, revolving around values. And when I see the Pluto square, this is when you're probably going to see some of the more kind of dramatic things that are kind of setting up on the 7th. A square is a 90-degree hard aspect in astrology, so it kind of represents sudden like friction where Venus's affections and Pluto's transformative power they're not saying eye to eye. And it brings up themes connected to power and control, obsession, and obviously a rebirth for Scorpio Aquarius themes. Scorpio is what we do in the shadows, Aquarius is what we do as a group. So if you happen to have anything, I would say 0 to about 3 degrees or so of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, you want to pay attention to this day because that's going to be a little bit of a tricky square. And I'm assuming some of us are going to see this manifest as some kind of like expose. There could be power struggles or manipulation that's kind of coming up in love or relationship matters. Also with money, we could see that there is some revealing of hidden motives, or there are things that are coming up that are being exposed that's really forcing deep and necessary change. I do think the Venus square Pluto is all about kind of jealousy and financial crisis. It's also about breakthroughs and shared resources. We want to use this transit for empowerment, and we want to avoid extremes in relationships or finances, and we want to try to be hands-off and not possessive, whether it's over people, relationships, things, it doesn't matter. This is where we're going to get tested. Then things are kind of calm for a little bit. It's like a little, almost like too calm. We don't see anything until closer to November the 18th, and this is actually when the transits start to get really good. And this is when we're going to start seeing Venus now harmonizing with outer planets and things that are going to be in Pisces and also in Cancer. So pretty much the second half of November is when I think we're going to see some of the best stuff come up. It's almost like Venus goes into Scorpio, we get agitated, we have uncomfortable conversations, we have to kind of deal with that socially, or we have to be checking in with our partners or talking about our goals, and we realize, hey, something's got to change. And then we make those changes all the way up until mid-November, and we start seeing how change can actually be good, it can be beneficial, it can be therapeutic. And this is where Venus in Scorpio is going to come into a trine with the North Node in Pisces. Now it looks like that day, the moon is also going to be in Scorpio. Obviously Venus and the moon in Scorpio can be sexy, but it can also be really heavy emotionally for a lot of people. But with the moon trining with Venus, the North Node, this is a day where fate is definitely stepping in. Now trines are 120 degrees. These are like a Jupiterian energy. They're free flowing. And I will say, because we've got moon and Venus in a sign it doesn't behave well in, It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to feel good for everyone. It means that we're probably going to see some necessary kind of shift or change happening this day. This is about harmonious flow between Venus's transformation and values and the North Node's kind of karmic path. So we're aligning our personal desires with soul growth, and it's especially strong for the water signs. Now, I think it's supportive. It's going to be guiding us towards destined connections, listening to our intuition and our gut, and obviously enhancing compassion and spiritual depth in relationships. It can also bring fated encounters and creative inspiration or value shifts that feel very effortless. So it's ideal for manifesting emotional healing as well as intuitive bonds. Then on the 24th of the month, we're going to see Venus coming into conjunction with Mercury retrograde in Scorpio. And I know you guys are going to hear a lot of people being like, this is when the exes come back. Yes, I'm sure that could definitely happen for sure. Mercury is the phone, it's the email, it's the text message. Venus is obviously quite obsessive in this sign, and it's hard to let things go. So we can be fixating on the past. We could be trying to renegotiate or clinging on to something. And it's going to be at 22 degrees, which is a degree that talks about long-standing issues in our own lives, but also out in the world. 22 is a Capricorn degree. So a lot of this can be tied to negotiating budget-related things, dealing with government shutdowns, some kind of change or transformation with major companies and their budgeting and what they're trying to negotiate when it comes to dealing with staff, or, for some people, it's going to be some people coming back to work. For others, it's going to be negotiating like early retirement or maybe even like layoff packages. So it, once again, has its pros and cons, but I think that that conjunction is definitely a time where we're reminiscing and thinking about the past, or we're having to decide what we're willing to kind of give up or let go of. So with the conjunction of Mercury, which is retrograde, now we're merging Venus with Mercury, the communicator. So it's going to be intensifying the Mercury retrograde themes, where we're focusing on deep introspective dialogues that's about love and worth. A lot of this can also be people being more transparent, or they're finally talking about how they feel, or they're talking about where they've been kind of having blockages. And Scorpio is a sign that is strongly connected to anything relating to psychology. So if you're somebody who's working with a therapist, or you're trying to work on trust issues or intimacy issues or being more vulnerable, for some of us, this can be a time where we're actually having some really big breakthroughs, and we're purging and we're clearing out some of these negative habits. It could also be for some people because of the connection to the South Node with Virgo, where they're trying to get some kind of support, or they're trying to get some kind of health support. Scorpio does deal with the reproductive organs, things that are connected to hormones, anything revolving around the bowels and how we kind of detox. So it can be about reevaluating emotionally, but also physically, what is and is not healthy and what needs to go, and what have I been doing for a long time that needs to kind of be flushed out. So I'm anticipating that with Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus in Scorpio on the 24th, we're going to see profound conversations or revelations about relationships and finances begin to emerge. Possibly revisiting issues for clarity, and it's almost got like this Kazemi-like energy that's going to be sharpening the insights, but also warning against secretive talks or things that have been concealed. Definitely use this transit for journaling your desires and maybe negotiating with authenticity to avoid any misunderstandings. I think some people are going to also be doing like debt transfers or debt consolidation or refinancing. And this could be very much connected to government shutdowns. Once again, I think that it's going to be about trying to negotiate a deal and kind of getting things through, and then trying to figure out a way to get funds back into programs that have not been receiving support. So then on the 26th, we start to see the Venus in Scorpio trine Jupiter in Cancer. I'm really loving like the 26th, on, even though we're going to see an opposition to Uranus. Look at these transits. So you're going to see Venus that's going to trine Saturn. And oops, I take that back. Venus is going to trine Jupiter first. Hold on a second. It's right around the same time. So 26th. Yeah, so it's going to happen the same day. So Venus will first trine Jupiter, and that looks like that's going to happen early in the morning. So on the 26th, we have a grand water trine. Venus trine Jupiter, Venus trine Saturn. Pretty good stuff. I mean, Jupiter and Saturn are connected through Jupiter, being associated with Pisces. Scorpio is not really getting any support from Mars or from Pluto, but that's okay. I like it. I mean, I think that, Venus trine Jupiter, you're going to see that twice a year, so that's not anything unusual. But this year we have Jupiter in Cancer. So we've got Jupiter that's going to obviously be exalted. Jupiter and Saturn are both retrograde, so there are going to be some needs to kind of deal with the past in a way. I think with Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus, the same thing. But a trine is still harmonious, and this is also, making everything feel bigger, more emotional, more expansive, right? And Venus trining Jupiter is blending Scorpio's intensity with Cancer's like nurturing need for like abundance and emotional growth, home and family growth, intuitive development. So luck flows here. November 26th is a really great day because we're going to see luck when it comes to family, finances, and obviously bringing in generosity, maybe being more optimistic and kind of deepening our connections to other people. So for some of us, it can actually manifest as rewarding relationships, creative opportunities, maybe new financial gains, and embracing vulnerability for heartfelt expansion. Just watch for overindulgence. That definitely happens when we see trines to Jupiter. Now, later in the day, then we see Venus come into a trine with Saturn. And I love this for a lot of reasons because I feel like the entire transit is all about growing and accepting change and letting things go and keeping an open mind and being willing to negotiate what we need versus what we have to kind of like give up. And Venus trine Jupiter is expansive when it comes to love, money, philosophy, travel. It's a feel-good trine. But Venus trine Saturn is going to stabilize that. That is going to essentially say whatever is growing, we can maintain it. We can commit to it. Wonderful day for relationships, for love, for money. I think things are going to begin to improve. Obviously, a trine is really stabilizing Venus, and Saturn is structure. So what's going to happen here is we're going to see that it's about integrating Scorpio's depth with Pisces' more compassion, and it's about, creating long-lasting, enduring commitments or relationship, kind of plans. So relationships and values will gain in maturity with this trine. It's going to favor long-term bonds. It's also about discipline, creativity, or financial plans. And this energy really builds trust through boundaries, potentially leading to reliable, partners. Great for therapy or commitments. Just avoid having your emotional walls up with Saturn and Pisces. All right, well, here's where things get a little confusing, a little dicey. Then we're going to see on the 29th, Venus will come into an opposition with Uranus in Taurus, and it will also come into a trine with Neptune in Pisces. Wow. So looks like the moon's going to be in Pisces around the time that's happening. Venus will begin to oppose Uranus, and that's going to happen in the PM hours on November 29th, right here. And it's at 29 degrees. Hi, aneretic degree, drama. And then it's going to trine Neptune. So there's something going on November 29th too. Let's talk positive. Venus trine Neptune. With Venus trine Neptune, I guess the positive is that the trine is really touching on the idealistic, kind of enchanting, beautiful, spiritual, artistic qualities, right? Neptune is dreams. So it's enhancing Scorpio's passion with Pisces spirituality and imaginative flow. So we can see this in a positive way if you're a designer, if you're somebody who is, feeling inspired, if you want to create art, you want to create music. You can do that, and there is a sense of really being in the flow of it. But also, we can see that there can be some romantic illusions. You're always dealing with that with Neptune. And it can also be bringing up for some people the need to kind of blend sensuality with empathy for better soul connections. This could also bring forgiveness. Neptune is known for that. Creative highs, really focusing on spiritual love, and it's ideal for rituals or healing. Just ground yourself to avoid some of the issues with deception or escapism. Guys, my eyes light up whenever I see all these 29s. 29, 29, 29, 29. I mean, the moon will be there at 29 at one point. And that's going to be happening in the evening on the 29th. So there is some big critical turning points, particularly regarding debt, secrets, finances. I mean, Scorpio is the money that we owe. Taurus is the money that we make. And it does talk about some of these kind of growing economic challenges and where we're needing more support and structure to show up. Thankfully, Saturn's going to be direct, but Venus in opposition to Uranus is a bit of like a curveball. I think with Venus in opposition to Uranus, we see tension here. Venus is the dispositor. Look, Taurus does not like to have Uranus in its sign because it wants stability and it wants stable growth. It doesn't want kind of chaos. And Venus in Scorpio is really afraid of change or having to give something up. So there is definitely a sense of there being some drama, and 29 degrees connects to like Leo. It can be about the markets, can be about leadership. And obviously, Venus really wants stability. She doesn't have a lot of stability when she's in Scorpio. She's afraid. And when she opposes Uranus, it means that there can be some revolutionary kind of urges, sudden changes with banking and finance, really pitting Scorpio's intensity against Taurus's security. So I'm predicting that even though we can be in tune with what we have to kind of let go of or wrap up or release, it'll still be jarring. You know, Venus-Uranus oppositions or squares are notorious for, you know, kind of make or break moments with people in relationships. It can come down to issues and values in particular, and I do think we'll see sudden disruptions or excitements in relationship or finance begin to arise. So breakups, innovation, value shifts, it could really liberate some of us from stagnant patterns in relationships, but it can also cause shock and surprise. And we want to use this opposition to channel it for independence, avoiding anything that's impulsive. Keep in mind, Venus is also trining Neptune. So I could see this as a day where some people are going, you know what, I just have to forgive. Maybe that's not, you know, my typical reaction or response. And maybe if I am willing to kind of open up and be vulnerable and let this go and move forward and kind of move together and focus on unity, we can overcome, you know, the storm. But other people are going to go, no, there have been some issues where there hasn't been honesty or there has been lack of, you know, forthcomingness and details and other things. And people are going to feel with Venus and Scorpio like they're in a way being not mistreated. What's the word that I'm looking for? Like they're like scorned, right? We're going to see some people that are going to go, oh, there are some things that I just can't, you know, overcome or I can't forgive. And then boom, I'm letting it go. And that could be Venus at 29 trine Neptune as well. So we will then see on the 30th, Venus will move into Sagittarius, where it's going to go obviously into a different sign. It's going to be in a sign that is fire, so it's not so like emotionally draining. We're going to see more optimism and more growth as Venus moves through that in Sag season at the end of November. Another video for another day. But thankfully, I feel like as we get to the end of November, you know, and it goes into a sign that's ruled by Jupiter, you know, love and finances will lighten up for a period of time. We're going to see people focus more on, you know, travel, culture, and being a little bit more broad-minded with their connections. And we'll talk about that next month. So let's get into the 12 rising signs. I'd love to talk to you guys a little bit about which house Venus is moving through in Scorpio. I want to talk about what Venus rules in your chart. And I also want to talk about some of the themes and some of the tips maybe that I would give you of what to watch for and where to set intentions revolving around this Venus transit, okay? All right, so as always, I'm a Western astrologer. That's the kind of astrology that I like to practice. I recommend listening to your rising sign first. That's going to be the 9 o'clock hour on your natal chart. This is going to tell you exactly which house Venus is moving through, and it's going to tell you where the action basically is going to be. So that's what you want to listen to first. And you can also listen to your sun sign, or you can listen to your moon sign. You're going to get some kind of support that's going to come from all three of those. Remember, if you have any personal planets, sun, moon, rising in Scorpio, I think it's going to be pretty good for you, also for the water signs. But everybody can benefit because we're going to be seeing some of those grand water trines towards the end of November. So this will be for Western whole sign. I'm going to start with my Aries and my Aries risings. Aries, well, let's take a look at what's going on with Venus's trek through Scorpio. She's leaving your 7th house now. She's moving into your natal 8th house. Now, the 8th house deals with intimacy, shared resources, taxes, loans, spousal support, child support, inheritance, savings, investments as well. Now, Venus rules your money, values, and possessions, as well as your relationships, others, and all of that stuff. So I think that the bonds are really going to be deepening throughout this transit for the next month. This is about the bonds deepening through shared finances, maybe emotional mergers, you know, transformative desires and closeness. And I would say watch for when it comes to joint investments, maybe focus on joint investments or releasing control in relationships and letting relationships kind of unfold the way that they're meant to. This is also intended for, you know, empowerment through vulnerability. It could also be really kind of deep and sexy, you know, having Venus go through the 8th house. If you want to have more intimacy or more closeness, or if you're hoping to spice things up a little bit, or maybe you're looking to receive more or bring in more money or get lending, Venus going through this house can be good. Just keep in mind Mercury is retrograding back into this. You're going to have time to negotiate some of this stuff. And you are one of the signs that I think are going to really benefit if you are doing any healing, any psychological healing, you're working with a therapist, an intimacy coach, a couples counselor, that can also be really helpful. And just having more in-depth conversations with your partner. Good luck. All right, Taurus and Taurus risings, your chart ruler is on the move. Venus is moving into Scorpio, your opposite sign, in your natal 7th house. Well, Taurus, Venus rules you, so wherever Venus is where you are. Obviously, Scorpio is a hot zone with the current Mercury retrograde that's going to be getting ready to head back into your 7th house this month. So there is a lot of renegotiating, rethinking relationships, who you partner with, who you sell to, whether or not you want to be in a relationship, or if there is something that is changing. But the good news is that Venus actually is very comfortable in the 7th house. She wants to bring in relationships and partnerships. She also rules your 6th house, which is about dealing with health, routines, as well as your pets and any connection to your work or your coworkers. So Venus going into your 7th house is going to create, I think, an opportunity to transform your closest relationships. Maybe that's your relationship habits. Maybe it's going to represent, you kind of being there for other people as they're going through something, or maybe it's about kind of opening up to each other more. And I would definitely expect intense attraction in one-on-one dynamics. So if you're single, it's a good time to meet someone, or somebody from the past can come back transformed. It can also be for existing relationships, reevaluating your commitments and adding a little bit more passion and depth to that particular person. Now, tips for you guys would be set goals for magnetic connections, whether it's bringing in clients, connecting with new potential suitors, and focusing on loyal alliances and really affirming balance in giving and receiving when it comes to your partnerships. Now, easier said than done, Taurus. Obviously, you have to get through November's Mercury retrograde in this sign. It does make me feel like for a lot of you guys, because Mercury is connected to matters of the heart as well as children, there could be a back and forth whether or not you're going to take the next step with someone, if you're really in love with someone, and if you guys are on the same page. So allow that retrograde to kind of play out, and possibly with Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus, you're going to have a really kind of in-depth kind of conversation about what it is you both want. If you're a good relationship land, nothing's going on there, use this to be doing any creative collaborations, use this to be trying to figure out how to bring in clients and how to better connect with other people, okay? Good luck, Taurus. I hope you enjoy this transit. For my Gemini and Gemini risings, you guys are going to experience Venus's transit through Scorpio in your natal 6th house. Now, Gemini, the 6th house is obviously all about health, work, your day-to-day routines, anything kind of connected with your coworkers and your office. Well, Venus is tied to your 12th house, which is all about the subconscious, isolation, spirituality, and sometimes endings. It's also tied to your 5th house, which is all about creativity, romance, children, and self-expression. So as Venus goes through your natal 6th house, truth be told, it means that work and love are one and the same. You may feel like you're going to have to do a little bit of more manual labor or emotional labor in relationships. It also means that there is going to be this kind of sensual shift in your daily habits or work relationships. Now, yes, could love be found at work for some? It could also be found at the gym or the laundromat or, walking the dog. But I also think that this is about healing through devoted service. And Venus in the 6th house has someone or something to take care of. So whether it's a pet, maybe it's, supporting a fellow coworker, maybe it's about taking care of a child with that kind of tied to the 5th house. For some of you guys, you're going to find that, the intention here is going to be about pleasurable routine or pet bonds. So we want to release overwork for self-care. I think a lot of this is realizing that more work isn't necessarily healthy. Obviously, you're going to be in the midst of a Mercury retrograde in the same sign. So this is really personal for you when it comes to changing your job, changing your habits, prioritizing your health. And it can be anything from reproductive health. It could be things kind of connecting to what is and is not healthy in relationships. And also potentially even some good job opportunities with Venus going through the 6th house for some of you, especially if you're in a creative field. So I hope you guys enjoy this transit. Definitely let me know what happens. All right, we've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You guys are going to experience Venus's trek through the sign of Scorpio in your natal 5th house. Now, Cancer, the 5th house is all about matters of the heart, children, creativity, joy, self-expression, romance, dating. And Venus is tied to your 11th house of goals, friends, and allies. It's also directly tied to your 4th house of home and family. So as Venus goes through the 5th house, first things first is this is a good transit for you guys. And I think I'm not favoring the water signs, but I think the water signs are really going to like this because of some of the trines that you guys are going to have to planets in your sign. So for Cancer, this is all about self-expression. It's also about romantic pursuits, maybe transforming joy through depth. Maybe you're going to find that it's about, prioritizing date night, spending better time with your kids, working on a hobby, maybe launching a creative project. And I think that the intentions that I would set is to really focus on artistic rebirth. It could also be for some of you guys fertile connections. Maybe you're focusing on fertility or something connected to having children. And this is about really focusing on authentic pleasure. Now, throughout this transit, you're also going to see Mercury retrograde in the same sign. So if you're somebody who does any kind of creative work, if you've got websites, if you're doing blogs, creative writing, anything like that might be part of this. You may also find that there is just some real lucky streaks happening at the end of the month when Venus is coming into a trine with Jupiter in your sign. And this is likely bringing you some kind of romantic connection, new hobby that you love, or good news that deals with your children. You guys will have to let me know what happens. I think this is going to be a beautiful transit for you guys, and I think you guys will enjoy it. Good luck. All right, for Leo and Leo rising, you guys are going to experience Venus trekking through the sign of Scorpio, moving through your natal 4th house. Now for you guys, Venus is tied to your 10th house of career and reputation. It's also directly tied to your 3rd house of communication, networking, learning, anything that deals with vehicles or movement or siblings. So as Venus goes into your 4th house, the one thing that I think about right off the bat is that if you're an early degree Leo, Venus is squaring your sign, and it's also coming into a square with Pluto. And this seems to allude that something needs to change emotionally or on the home front. There will be a transformation happening with Mercury retrograde here, but for many of you guys, it's either dealing with the past, dealing with a domestic matter, dealing with a family member, and trying to kind of keep the peace with a partner or a relationship. Now, obviously with Venus going through the 4th house, it's not just about talking about your home and your aesthetic, it's also talking about maybe one of your parents, your family, and your inner security. So the themes of Venus transiting through your 4th house is about deepening your home life and your family ties. It's also about valuing emotional foundations intensely. Some of you guys might decide to change or transform your space, move, redecorate, or anything like that. I love Venus in the 4th house. I would just say be careful with the square to Pluto. Some of the things that you want to do, a partner may not necessarily like. And some of the changes that are kind of going on at home might be directly tied to changes that are happening at work, working from home. And Venus in the 4th is pretty notorious for a woman coming to stay or visiting or bringing in more love or abundance into the home. So maybe a sibling's coming to visit, maybe you're going to be reconnecting with family, maybe you're actually looking for a new home space. But just really focus on, I think, setting home beautification or ancestral healing goals. And if you can affirm secure passions at home, I think it's going to make you feel a little bit more cozy and at home. And hopefully those of you guys who are maybe planning or there is some kind of change going on in the home space, the Mercury retrograde that's kind of happening is going to give you the opportunity to reimagine, where you can live, what it's going to cost, and be a little bit open to some of the change. Good luck, Leo. For my Virgos and Virgo risings, you guys are going to experience Venus trekking through the sign of Scorpio in your natal 3rd house. Now for you guys, Venus rules the 9th house, which is higher mind, foreign travel, anything that's connected to philosophy or education, and the 2nd house, which is connected to money, personal values, and anything revolving around your self-esteem or security. So as Venus goes through the 3rd house, she's bringing more beauty when it comes to the mind. Maybe it's fancy gadgets, getting a new car, anything revolving around, pleasure or investment when it comes to travel, relationships to neighbors, as well as siblings. Now, I think the themes for many of you guys are going to be intense dialogues or mindset shifts, and know that there's going to be some kind of like magnetic local connection. It's possible you meet somebody in your local community, right? It's also possible that you're investing more money into, communications or into anything that deals with family relationships or short distance trips. Keep in mind also that Venus will be retrograding, Mercury will be retrograding, and Mercury rules your chart in this same house. So for many of you guys, I would say be cautious, be careful. If you're signing a lease, if you're buying a car, if you are trying to negotiate something with a neighbor or with a sibling, because likely it's going to be a little topsy-turvy. But perhaps towards the latter part of November, when Mercury is retrograde conjunct Venus, you can actually negotiate, sign something, come to some kind of agreement maybe get ready to launch a website, and maybe make a better decision about if you're going to book a trip, sign a lease, or buy a car. I would be really setting intentions, connecting to studying things you love and trying to communicate in a way that's loving and like open-minded. I also think this is about having truthful talks when it comes to money and values in relationships. And you're really going to feel like you want to release any superficial kind of chit chat and conversations. Great time to be thinking about, reconnecting with siblings or planning a little bit of like a getaway. Some of you guys are going to have to negotiate things connecting to education, legal, or travel. I do think it will get better as you get to the end of the month. And obviously, Venus coming into conjunction with your chart ruler, not so bad, right? All these trines also happening to your 7th house is great for better connecting and communicating, whether it's working with a therapist, if it's bringing in a mediator, if it means that you're trying to work on your relationship through, discussing a potential move. All of these things are possible for you guys, so definitely work with this transit. I think it'll benefit you. Good luck. For my Libras and Libra risings, obviously this is important for you guys as Venus is your chart ruler and she's on the move. Venus is now moving into the 2nd house, which is going to be dealing with obviously possession, self-worth, spending power, and anything financial. Now, Venus rules you, so it's your self-esteem, your possessions, your kind of money power, and it's also connected to the 8th house, which is going to deal with debt, loans, and other people's resources. So truth be told, Venus going through the 2nd house is actually quite powerful. I think with the Sun and Venus being there is a huge focus on, reevaluating your financial power, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about the money that you make, and obviously having some kind of esteem with depth. Many of you guys will find that this is about attracting abundance, and it can be through financial matters, what you're investing in, what you're getting out of it, what you're maybe, cashing in on for some of your credit card points, or maybe you're receiving something of value from other people. And this can also be about reevaluating your style. And I think many of you guys really would benefit from focusing on empowered earning or value alignments. And this is about being resourceful with your desires. So, Mercury is going to be going retrograde in this house. This could be about some of your kind of money concerns, self-esteem concerns, some concerns also maybe about education, legal matters, or traveling. I do feel like for obviously you and Taurus, the Venus trine Jupiter is going to be particularly fortuitous at the end of the month. I think for you guys with your career, and then also some of the trines that are going to be happening to your 6th house is going to be if you're keeping your schedule, your health, and your daily routine in order, if you're committed to that. And that also means taking care of your health and not overworking. You'll see some emotional breakthroughs at work and also some financial, I think, upward swings. It'll take a little bit of time, but you'll see that end of November going into December. So I really hope that you enjoy this. It's a good money-making kind of transit for my Libra risings. All right, we've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Okay, so what's up, Scorpio? You guys are going to be the stars of the show. Obviously, Venus is going into your sign, so everybody loves it when Venus is in their sign because it's going to give them a couple of weeks of having a little bit of extra charm. Now, I think it's good for you guys for a number of reasons, not just because, Venus is in your 1st house if you're a Scorpio rising, but also because of the houses that Venus is connected to. So Venus is connected to your 7th house of relationships, partners, and obviously spouses. It's also connected to the 12th house of what is kind of subconscious or unhidden, things that are hidden or unknown. And it's also about self-undoing tendencies. And I think you guys are going to see a lot of relational themes throughout the month of November. Now, obviously, Venus going through the 1st house, it's about your identity and your appearance. So your personal magnetism is like sky high. There is a sense of maybe feeling a little bit sexier or reinventing your style or your look in some way. And it's also about embodying this very intense kind of allure. So having Venus being in your 1st house is like drawing people in, whether it's a new Facebook profile photo, if it's going to be a new product that you're selling and people want it. It could potentially be that you're single and you're not even really looking and then people just walk right up to you. It's really good for relational matters. I think that, I would be setting intentions revolving around self-love with Venus in the 1st house, the relationship to self, and maybe reminding yourself that, people are interested, that they are kind of, looking into what you're doing or they're curious. You just may not always see it. So you want to be carrying yourself in a way where you're turning on your, open for business sign if you're single and you're looking to mingle. This is also about style transformation goals that can be happening and really affirming your charm, which I know can be hard to do for some Scorpios, but you guys are charming. And I think that in the midst of a Mercury retrograde here, it's about, how you can become more social or more likable, or how you're reconnecting with friends. I also feel like that you're going through a profound just transformation period with Mercury's tied to your 8th house, where you're trying to reassess, what are my values? What do I want? What's changing with my body? What's changing with my appearance? And I would say, give yourself a little bit of grace, really focus on that self-love throughout this transit. Know that it's going to be beautiful for you, especially the second half of November, as Venus is coming into a trine with planets in your 5th house, which could be great for dating, romantic commitments, having children, anything revolving around joy, and obviously trines to Jupiter in your 9th house, which is going to be bringing up some kind of real expansion, especially revolving around travel, education, for some of you guys, graduations, marriages, ceremonies, things like that. And you'll really enjoy the end of the month. With Mercury retrograde in your sign and Venus square Pluto, I would say pump the brakes. Don't make any big changes when it comes to your appearance right now. And also, this is about bringing money and resources back to you because it's going to trine Jupiter. I hope it's a good one for you guys. I think you guys are going to like it. Definitely let me know what happens. For Sag and Sag rising, you guys are going to experience Venus's transit through the sign of Scorpio in your natal 12th house. Now, Venus for you is connected to your 11th house of friends, allies, and goals. It's also tied to your 6th house of health, habits, pets, and your daily routine. Now, Venus is trekking through the 12th house, which can sometimes be a little bit of like a challenging place to have Venus. Obviously, the 12th house is about solitude. Sometimes it's about traveling in a foreign land, but it can also be about healing the soul. It can be about releasing karmic relationship bonds. It can be about dealing with isolation in relationships, or where you're needing some space, or you're questioning, where is the help? So when we put that all together, going through your 12th house, you can find that there can be hidden desires that are coming up for you in relationships and feeling unfulfilled. You can also feel like there are some shocking, surprising things that are coming up revolving around friends or your health or your habits or even your work that is, kind of getting flushed out in your 12th house. It's Scorpio season, so it's pretty natural as all these planets are going through the 12th house. You're going through a reevaluation period before you come into, Sag season, and everything kind of hits reset. Watch for, I think, intentions that are meant to be self-love rituals. I think this is also about purifying and detoxifying stuff because Venus is tied to your 6th house. So it can be what is not healthy habits, and it can be financially, physically, it can be what you're eating. And I think a lot of this is about releasing stuff in isolation or in an introspective state. Now, I say also set intentions for dream work. Know that there can be signs and symbols coming up with Mercury retrograde there in this next month where, maybe you're working out karmic connections that you had to relationships that need to be kind of flushed out in your dreams. It's also really good for past life regression work. And know that there can be compassionate endings here, and it's about embracing, the inner depths. That mixed with the Mercury retrograde in your sign. I know a lot of Sag and Sag risings are seeing some major endings or conclusions in relationships. Like, I can't candy coat that for you. With Uranus in your 7th house and, the Mercury retrograde in opposition to that, that's enough to cause some static. But with Venus going through the 12th house at the same time, some of you guys are going to feel kind of like a partner is in and out, or they're inconsistent, and you're having to kind of step away. Others are hoping for stability in relationship, but there's a need to kind of let go of some of the subconscious blockages that you have in relationships, and you're kind of questioning, how long am I going to kind of be in the hole? It will get better. I think you guys, especially as we're getting into December and we get into the new moon and Sag, things are definitely going to be a little bit easier for you. But a lot of this stuff is stuff that you're dealing with in your subconscious. So meditation, even hypnosis and self-love ritual and care, any spiritual work can be really helpful. More purging and kind of burning bridges and letting go of what's been holding you back so you can embrace something that's new. Let me know how it goes. I'm excited to hear from you guys. Definitely leave me some feedback. All right, for Capricorn and Capricorn rising, you guys will be experiencing Venus trekking through Scorpio, and it'll be moving through your natal 11th house. Now, Venus for you rules your career through Libra in your 10th house, as well as your relationship status. It's also tied to your 5th house of children, creativity, self-expression, and joy. So as Venus moves through the 11th house, this is a very lively time because there could be parties and gatherings and friends, and love is in the air, and you could be meeting people. It could be about business and pleasure with that tie to your 10th house. It could also be about creative collaborations, having fun, and connecting with groups. I think that for many of you guys, you're going to find that there's going to be, passionate networking opportunities, really great group dynamics, transformations when it comes to your future vision. Obviously, a Mercury retrograde in the mix as well might mean that you're traveling, reconnecting with friends you haven't seen in a while. For some of you guys, it could also mean that you're kind of trying to pivot and change direction with your work or your career. So you're kind of leaning on people who you're networking with or friends that can kind of help further, some of those potential work changes. I would say for you guys, I would be really focusing on allied abundance. Some of you guys are going to want to get involved in humanitarian aspects or things where you're kind of raising money or funds for a cause. And it's really about collective power, where you feel more powerful because you're surrounding yourself with people who are goal-getters. And, they are definitely kind of on the up and up with what's going on in their career and their relationships. And you're wanting to spend time around some of those people. I think that, for my Capricorn risings, with Venus coming into a trine with Saturn in your third house, I think this is beautiful because it's really going to allow you to travel, connect, and communicate, not just in person locally, but also online. And also there is some nice trines to Jupiter in your 7th house, which can also be promoting the likelihood of being able to meet somebody or kind of continuing to expand in a current relationship dynamic. So communication, meeting other people, being where the people are, that's really what you want to do while Venus is in your 11th house. Good luck. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you guys are going to be experiencing Venus trekking through Scorpio in your natal 10th house. Now, if you happen to have anything 0 to about 3 degrees of Aquarius, you're going to feel Venus coming into a square with Pluto. So I just want to kind of note that. That's going to be pretty prominent for a lot of you guys. Obviously, kind of feeling like you're between a rock and a hard place, between having to show up at work and the changes and transformation you're going through personally. But Venus deals with the 9th house of higher education, legal matters, your belief system, anything involving travel. It's also connected to the 4th house of home and family, the past, root matters, your private life. Now, Venus going through the 10th house, I think for my Aquarius risings is really great because it's good for your reputation, it's good for your authority. And relationships with bosses, people at work, connecting is really, really positive. I do feel like this is going to give you guys an opportunity to really brush up on your public image. Some of you guys will see career shifts that are for the better, and this is also about valuing your professional depth. Now, Venus will be going, through the same sign where Mercury is going to retrograde. So I think a lot of you guys are going to be renegotiating something about your work or your pay. Maybe you're reevaluating your status. Maybe you're changing jobs. Maybe you're trying to get, support, or you're trying to get better benefits or bonuses. Others are kind of reorganizing their current business. And so you'll have to kind of go through the Mercury retrograde, but whatever changes happen, I think are actually negotiations that's allowing you to feel like you have more peace of mind at home. So whether it's changing schedules, jobs, whatever, Venus really wants to help you feel more stable at home and with your family life. And it also wants to allow you to have more time for travel. And maybe there's a bit of like an adjustment going on revolving around what is my path? What is my purpose? I would be setting legacy or ambition goals with Venus going through this house. I would also be really affirming some sense of leadership and embracing the transformation that's going to be happening with your professional status. For some of you guys, it might mean that you're going back to school and, you're going in a new direction with your career. For others, it means that you have to kind of renegotiate something at work so you can be there for family. But now is your time to shine in a professional realm. Really pay attention to the relationships around you at work. Good luck, Aquarius. Oh, one other thing. The fact that it's going to trine Saturn is great for you because it's good for structuring your money. The fact that it's going to oppose Uranus in your 4th house does make me feel like there can be some intensity coming up throughout this transit, revolving around being pulled into the workplace and out of home, or having to change something about your work to accommodate family. You're changing, your home to accommodate work. So you'll see a little bit of static towards the end of November with that transit. Expect the unexpected. All right, in Pisces and Pisces risings, you guys are going to be experiencing Venus transiting through the sign of Scorpio. She'll be moving through your natal 9th house, which is a house that obviously deals with the higher mind, education, ceremonies, travel, legal matters. And Venus is tied to your 8th house of joint finances, other people's money. It's also tied to your 3rd house of communication and learning, vehicles, and anything that deals with movement, siblings, cars, all that stuff. So as Venus goes through the 9th house, you're indulging in finding beauty in travel. Maybe this is going to be about intense quests for truth or adventure. deepening your beliefs through passion. It can also be about really focusing on learning about something that you're really passionate about, or, you know, kind of upgrading your travel experiences. I think that's very likely for many of you. There can be a sense of negotiating something with somebody. It could be about negotiating joint finances, maybe dealing with a negotiation involving a legal matter. And I would say for many of you guys, the intention should be about profound learning or journeys and releasing limiting views, because that's really what we want to do, is we want to expand in the 9th house. Now, this happening in the midst of a Mercury retrograde tells me that you could be going back and forth in a long distance relationship, or there is some kind of back and forth with a partner, and what you're learning about changes with relationships. And yes, legal matters or travel can pop up. In spite of that, you've got Venus that's going to trine the North Node, Saturn, and Neptune in your sign, which means you're having to really listen to your gut, you know, be willing to kind of really show up, do things for yourself, even if you have to do it alone. And it's really kind of fortifying and strengthening you as a person, and also helping you really trust your intuition and what you're learning in the process. And Venus will come into a trine with Jupiter. So I would say arguably, I mean, come on, Pisces risings. I mean, you know, the end of November, you're going to be like, okay, thank God I got through that month. But you're going to be like, what did I learn? What did I learn about myself? What did I learn about being creative? What do I learn about these tests of faith and like being able to really stand up and you know, be able to manage on my own? So a lot of it is self-love, maybe. I think that I would be setting intentions, you know, if you want to go somewhere, start planning the trip. Maybe not in the middle of November with Mercury retrograde, but you can be learning about the culture or preparing to take a course or really focusing on something connected to publishing or education. Release any limited views if you really want to be the most successful. And you guys will have to let me know what happens for you in the end of November, because it's looking pretty good for your chart. Good luck. All right, so with that being said, thank you guys for exploring Venus in Scorpio with me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this transit ignites your deepest passions and leads to empowering transformations in the month of November. Obviously, astrology really kind of guides us to our truth. So if we trust the intensity, it'll reveal really what we need to know, what we need to change and transform. But you guys decide. Let me know. Leave me comments below. Let me know your rising sign, what's going on with this Venus transit. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell button if you want to see more of my videos and more of my stellar insights. I will be back on Thursday. We're going to be talking about this up-and-coming new moon in Scorpio. So it's a Scorpio vibe all week. But if you want to see more about me and my work, click the links below. Head over to my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. There I have brand new 2026 astrology calendars, personal transit calendars, as well as my up-and-coming tarot book and deck that I'm kind of putting out for you guys. So definitely join my newsletter while you're there if you want to check it out. We should be having it out in the next week or so. So enjoy this transit. I'll see all of you guys very soon. Take care.